Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Seth Williams and you are listening to the REtipster podcast. Today, I have the good fortune of talking with AJ Osborne, who's the CEO of Cedar Creek Capital. Now, if you're not into self-storage investing, you may not realize who this guy is, but I can tell you as someone who has been deeply immersed in this business over the past year, this guy has become a pretty well-known figure in this industry because he runs an annual event. He's a pretty big-time investor himself. He puts a ton of really good videos out there on YouTube. He does a ton of stuff in the self-storage space. And, AJ founded his private equity firm, Cedar Creek Capital, because he wanted others to benefit from the same financial freedom that saved his family at a time when they needed security the most. And he's been featured on top real estate podcasts and kind of like the go-to resource for self-storage investing. So, AJ, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So aside from what I just said there, who is AJ Osborne? What's your story? How did you get into real estate? How did you get into self-storage investing? Tell us your story.
Real estate, I think, is anybody that's interested in business and money and entrepreneurship, all that. Real estate's always there, right? It's always in their mind as an option. I think most people recognize that it's the most consistent, safest way to create wealth and income. I think that's a generally accepted thing. And when I got started in life, I followed in my father's footsteps selling insurance. And that's what we did. We sold insurance. And the reason why we sold insurance, the reason why I wanted to, my father grew up in extreme poverty. So he grew up in they didn't have running water. They didn't have a bathroom. They had an outhouse in the high deserts of, southern Idaho, and would have to walk to it when it was 20 degrees below zero. And my dad's not that old. So we're not talking about like the Depression, everybody. That's not what we're talking. We're talking like 70s. Okay. So when you look at his position where he was, he needed something to do to get him out of his situation. And he was determined to do that. His brothers and sisters, unfortunately, did not. They became, drug addicts, and they've all since passed. And homeless, as a lot of people in that situation do. He met my mother and started selling insurance and pulled himself out of poverty through that. And I think for me, that was like he was able to take control of his life by selling insurance because he was in control of the income that he would make. I think it's the uniformal idea that draws people into sales. Right? I control my income. If I want to make more, I'll sell more. I'm in control of my time, right? And I think there's just so much to that. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to be, right? I got paid on commissions. It was my clients paid me. So I've never, in my adult or career life, I never had a standardized paycheck. I worked right out of college for Aflac, where I was their, for lack of a better word, secretary that just kind of sat at the front, and I would process claims as people emailed them in, and I was the worst ever they'd ever had. And they told me, they're like, AJ, you are by far the worst admin person we've ever had at this job, and I'm sorry, but this isn't working out, but our clients love you. So we're actually going to have you try to be more in a sales role. And so I just kind of went down that road, followed my dad's footsteps and sold insurance. And I quickly learned, I made money. I made good money. I had a knack for it because I think I'm hard-headed and I just don't stop or give up. But what I thought was financial freedom, what I thought was something that would create wealth and income, actually turned out to be not true. Instead of not having one boss, I ended up having lots of bosses. And my income, although it had unlimited potential, it also was not stable. And so it would go up and down. So my wife and I had to live on a fraction of our income. We saved everything. And reading about successful people that were huge, like, billionaires, things like that, it was clear that their time wasn't connected to their money. And so, it was the idea of real estate was simply to not have my time connected to my earning potential anymore. Whereas in sales, it was directly correlated, right? The moment I stopped working was the moment I stopped making money. That was when I'm looking at, like most of us do, more than even just ourselves. When I was looking at my family, when I was looking at everything else, it's like, how do I take care of everybody? How do I do this? How do I take care of my parents? How do I take care of this? Because if he stops working, he stops making his money. And I think the simple principle that I found out is, in order to grow wealth and income, that you really have to compound your money. And in order to compound your money, you need stable revenue sources, and you need to have a known rate of return that you could repeat over and over and over again. And that stable revenue source couldn't be connected with your time. That's it. Really, that's it. The only things that you play with at all to compound wealth and grow is your return, meaning the input, the money coming in, right? And then the density or volume in which that, how many times you can regenerate that return. So how many times can I buy that source to repeat that income, and in what time frame, right? And that's it. Those three things are pretty much all that it takes. And when you look at people like Warren Buffett, when you look at people that created immensely successful businesses, whether it was Apple or whatnot, there was volume and magnitude. You either sold a ton of widgets and your machine was always selling them, or you sold things that were really, really expensive, and it's usually a combination of the two, and you got volume and magnitude. And I looked at that, and it became clear, I'm never going to get off this. And that's when my position really became, it was like a treadmill, right? And that's how I viewed it. I viewed it, and I was working with my dad. I was like, we're on a treadmill here. We make good money, right? So I guess you could say, selling insurance made us rich, but just like anybody with a high-paying W-2, it was solely dependent on that, right? And sometimes you made more money, sometimes you made less money. It wasn't consistent like a W-2. So real estate, I think, became our avenue to escape the treadmill, as I called it. And we wanted tax benefits, we wanted reoccurring income, and we wanted there to be light at the end of the tunnel, that we could get off this treadmill. And so we started investing in real estate. But the real estate, to me, I actually didn't like. I know I shouldn't be saying that, but when I started out, I didn't like real estate at all. The reason being was I looked at the amount of money that I needed and the return I was going to get, because being a sales guy, everything was cash flow. We didn't focus on anything but cash flow, right? So looking at saying, I'm going to pay this and I'm going to get this in return, it was like, wow, that seems like a really inefficient use of my money, right? And the cash is just not meaningful at all, not realizing the whole rest of it. So I love the piece of business where I could affect the income. So I'm going from a place where it's like I have total control over my income, then going to investing in real estate, I have no control over the income to raise it. Now, it's totally not correlated with my time, but at the same time, I was like, I can't really do anything to build this up. And we found storage, and storage seemed like it was a mix between the two. So this is prior to 2008. My father actually bought the first little storage facility with him and a partner because, trying to do something. And it was out in a small town in Idaho. I was actually looking at multifamily and some other assets. And he's like, look at this. And we thought, okay, well, maybe we can get some cash flow from this. But the big thing was I looked at it and said, this isn't a real estate asset. It's a business. I can actually control the revenue in it. And so from there, we just started buying up these small little storage facilities, which we were looking at. And the whole design behind it was they'd be paid off and they'd be giving us cash flow. We quickly learned that we could affect the income a lot more than we thought. And so we kept buying it and thought, hey, this is our way off our treadmill, right? This is the way that we can do it and win. basically, where we can not have our cake and eat it too. And as I went forward, we started to get a lot of assets. We started to be successful. I was actually running the branch location here in Idaho for the huge, $40 billion company out of Chicago. And I had, kind of golden handcuffs. They paid me really, really good then at the time. And then I had my storage, and I was just like, I'm winning at life. Like, it just kind of the thing. Like, this is it. This is the top of the game. And it was at that point, as it usually is, that the game ended. I became paralyzed overnight, essentially a quadriplegic, not essentially a quadriplegic. I was paralyzed from the eyes down, and I was put on life support. Wow. And I couldn't speak, eat, nothing. And I was fired.
How did that happen?
So it is something that is called Guillain-Barré. It's a trigger. And what happens is your white blood cells, for some reason, there's different triggers, that your white blood cells get confused. And they thought my nervous system, my central nervous system, was the threat, was the virus. So my body got scared, it produced 100 times the white blood cells that are normal, and it tore my central nervous system apart. It destroyed it. And so it severed my brain from my body, essentially. And it happened within...
That's insane.
It was like 1 minute I was fine. My legs were hurting. The next minute my legs stopped working. And then I didn't even say goodbye to the kids, went to the hospital. And within 2 days, I was being, 2-3 days, whatever it was, I was being put on life support because my whole body stopped functioning. And then I was paralyzed from the eyes down. They put me into a coma. When I came out, I was hooked to life support.
That's terrifying.
It was pretty crazy. We just had our fourth child. And, from there at that point, I was fired from my job in the hospital. There was no exit date for me in the hospital. We didn't know what would happen or how anything would occur. So I was fired in the hospital. And after months on end, I finally went from hospital to hospital, rehab facilities, and then I went home paralyzed to hang out at home. And when I was sitting in the hospital, I wasn't worried about losing my house. I wasn't worried about anything like that because my real estate was paying for my family to live. So even though I'd lost my high-paying job, I was okay. I could still take care of my family. I could still live. My wife didn't have to leave our 4 children and now a paralyzed husband to go get a job. And I thought, this is really important. This is really impactful. And so it was at that time that I made a promise. I was like, okay, I'm going to teach others about this and how to do this. And then I'm going to let other people come along with me to achieve the same thing. And that's when I started the private equity firm to allow other people to invest alongside us as we bought real estate, hold for the long term, so other people can participate in that financial independence that I had. And that became my why. That became my purpose. We didn't know if I would ever walk again or if I'd ever recover. And so I started working and started my private equity firm out of a wheelchair. And we just started moving forward. And that's, really what I've been doing for the last 5+ years. And I should have probably quit my job prior and done this and started a long time ago. But I'm so fortunate, and we've been through so much in our real estate investing experience, from the Great Recession to operating through it, to owning other businesses. I own everything from tech companies in the self-storage space, property management system companies, to co-founding that, as well as co-founding the largest self-storage co-op. So we don't consider ourselves a fully integrated firm. We consider ourselves a universally integrated firm. So it's not just like we're fully integrated, like we do the management stuff. We actually own the infrastructure in the industry. And we dumped millions into that stuff so we could perform better at what we do. So we became, and our goal was to try to build out the industry, build out our company, and allow others to participate. And so, yeah, that's what I do.
Man, that's a lot. You covered a lot there.
Yeah, it is a lot.
How long did it take for you to fully recover, and how did you recover?
I still have to take pain meds every day, all day. My nerves were destroyed. I still have problems walking. I still have to think every time I take a step. I don't have full functionality over my lower legs, but I am out of my leg braces, and I don't need walking support, which was more than we thought. I was told I would never get out of my leg braces or my walking help and being able to walk alone. And at that point, I left the hospital center and never went back. So after they told me that, I said I'd been going to rehab for years. I was like, well, then I'm no reason for me to be here if you don't even think that I can come back for it. But really, how you come back, there is no medicine. There is no cure. It's just they hope your body will work on your nerves and build them back. And Guillain-Barré normally has a really good outcome. The vast majority of people that get Guillain-Barré, it's like they get weakness in their legs, things like that. I was in the top percentile. You could say I won the lottery when it came to that. I was as bad as it gets. We got to a point where it was like, we don't know if he's coming off tubes. So it was the odds of me recovering even to where I am at, that wasn't, not only was it not looking great, it was not something that was expected by us. And we just had to learn really early on that, I thought, and listen, when I was in the hospital, I thought, listen, I'm either going to become AJ, the guy in the wheelchair, or I'm going to become AJ something else. And I meant not AJ the wheelchair, like being in the wheelchair was the bad thing. I actually didn't mind if I was in the wheelchair. It meant more to me of that's who I became, was the wheelchair. Or I was AJ something else, even if I was in a wheelchair. And I had to kind of make that decision and had to say, is this who I am now? Is this define me, right? Is this going to be, AJ's he's a paralyzed guy. He sits at home, and luckily he has income off it, and that's what he does. He hangs out with his kids, right, and things like that, which it's not that I don't like hanging out with my kids or anything else like that. It's not even that that's bad. That's just not what I wanted with my life. And I wanted to try to show my kids that, it doesn't matter how bad the situation is, you can be more and you can be better from it. And I knew that if I didn't do it, how would I ever tell my children that? And I had some friends that had become quadriplegics, and they came to me, and they weren't my friends first, but I was in the hospital on Christmas Eve, and I had one of my good friends. He's a quadriplegic. He came and sang Christmas carols to me in the hospital on Christmas Eve, because when he became a quadriplegic, he was like, I never want to let anybody else stay right in the hospital on Christmas Eve. And he was paralyzed twice. Crazy story. But he's completely confined to a wheelchair and still today, and has not a lot of use of his arms. And he was the definition of that. He has nonprofits. He has, he's so much more. And honestly, he probably does more and is more than he ever would have been before. And I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be more in the situation, not less because of it. But that's a personal choice we all have to make, no matter how big or small the situation is.
Do you think that the paralysis experience was kind of like a gift in disguise?
I'm better because of it. It's not something that I at all. I mean, people are like, are you mad at God or anything? I'm like, what? Why would I be? It's like, I guess I'm not so egotistical to think that those things should happen to other people and not me, first of all. I was young. I was 33. My 30s, which are almost over now, were essentially taken away in a large format for me. I was a big backpacker and a big fly fisherman. I was a big outdoors guy. And that identity part of me, well, it was taken away. I lost one of my highlights, my youthful time, where I'm supposed to be youthful and I'm finally making money. I have a wife and kids, and the world's your oyster, right? It changed. And so I turned and said, I'm going to make my 30s in a different way. And so there was, I think, a lot of people, we have a lot of reasons to be mad. We have a lot of reasons to make excuses. And we either make the choice to or not, no matter what situation you're in. And that doesn't mean like I was always like happy or no. It's a great story.
Yeah.
But it was hell.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Literally, I just lied on a bed and people would roll me over on my side as I looked at the wall as people would wash me down. I couldn't speak. I got home. My brother had to move in with me to help take care of me and my wife and the kids, and he would have to carry me. And, that's not when you see your kids and you're just like, I was your hero. I was this big giant of a person, right? And then now I'm whittled down to asking them to help me to do things because I'm stuck in a bed, right? I think we hear those stories and it's like, a lot of people are like, man, if I had something like that would get going, right? I mean, it's not what you think it is. I'm really happy with where I'm at and the challenges and everything else, but it's not fun. It wasn't easy. And although I say I wouldn't ever change it. Obviously, I don't ever wish it or anything else, but I do believe that I'm better off for it. And I do believe my family's better off for it. I believe my children, my wife, I believe that I have a better business, and I think I'm just an overall a better person for it. And I never want to lose those gifts, ever. They're so important to me because those gifts became my gifts regardless of my situation. And they were gifts that I created. And that is the biggest lesson I think that I could ever have, was that I can have these things and these gifts regardless of my situation. And I never want to lose that. And that's hard because even as I got better, even now, right, we all fall back into old ways. And it's like, I got to remind myself, that's not that important. Remember, like when you get down on yourself and you start to think about it, and you think, hold on here. Come on. We got to put this into perspective. And I hope I don't lose those.
Yeah. Like I wonder if, and we haven't really gotten into it that much yet, but like I wonder if Cedar Creek Capital would exist today if that hadn't happened. You know, like think of all the strength you have as a result of going through that trauma in your life.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't at all.
I think a lot of people are probably like, say if it's something much more minor, like say if you're stuck in a job you don't like and you decide to go do something on your own, you wouldn't do that if you didn't have that discontent and that struggle and that friction with something that you're not enjoying, you know? So, and if you do have a job you like, I guess that's awesome.
Well, and two, and you bring up a really good point. When I talk to people like, I shouldn't complain, I got a divorce, but I shouldn't complain, right? Kind of thing. And I'm like, hold on here. There's always two sides to this coin. Although I physically had this happen and everything, I had my family intact. And I couldn't imagine what would have happened or my life would have been like without having the support of my wife, right? And my family and my kids. So I'm like, actually, like to me, that sounds way worse because how much I had to have that at that time. There's always two sides to the coin. And just because somebody else thinks that what they're going through is smaller or not, that's just not how it works. And two, our brain doesn't distinguish things like that. So if you're struggling with something that's really bad and devastating in your life, like a divorce or something else like that, right? Well, it's not like your brain's like, okay, well, we have a scale of bad here and there's this. No, it's just bad, right? And so when I was at the worst, I don't know that I thought that it would have been worse in another situation. I think that's really important for people to remember. So the way that we approach any problem is the way we approach all problems. And that is universally true, I believe. And so it's, all those difficult things in our lives, they can be motives. They can be, your boss yells at you at work and makes you embarrassed in front of everybody. That could be the motive for you to do something that you want and to take that and make that into something else, right? And make that into more. And I think that's really important.
On that whole thing about the financial security and having recurring income that kind of saved you in that crisis, it makes you wonder, like, do you think, is there ever financial security if your income isn't recurring, permanent, and dependable? Like you can make millions from something that requires your active involvement, but like if it's not recurring, I mean, it's not going to last ultimately, right? I don't know. What do you think about that?
100%. I learned very quickly there's a big difference between being rich and being wealthy. And rich people, right, they are at the highest risk of losing it all. And the millionaire status is the most volatile social class there is. So more people come in and out of the millionaire status than any other social class. When you look at financial support and financial, rich people, they make a lot of money and they can spend a lot of money. They usually have lots of nice things, right? And wealthy people, they don't have to work for their money, right? And then you have what I'd consider the super wealthy, which means they're rich and wealthy, means they make lots of money and it's all correlated with their time and supported, right? And like that's kind of the end goal. You're like, I want to make lots and lots of money, but it also needs wealth. But too often, I think we default to making a lot of money, having the nice things, to securing the income, because you pay upfront for income security on the back end. That's just an economic reality, right? And so people that make lots of income, they're usually actually at risk of losing their standing the most, because if something happens, where they have to come back from, the distance is huge. If you're a doctor that works with his hands and you make $400,000 or $500,000 a year and you break your hand, right? What are you going to do to make $400,000 or $500,000 a year?
Yeah. I don't know.
Your whole entire lifestyle, your whole entire life just got uprooted, right? And can disappear in an instant. So unless that income is not tied to your time, is diversified, and is backed by real assets that are stable and not at risk, yeah, I don't think there is a lot of income security. It didn't matter how good I was at my job. My income stopped.
Yeah.
I could have been the best in the world. Didn't matter. It was over. And I was 33. So it's not like, oh, this is something for you to worry about. Like I like to say, everyone has to retire. That is a universal fact. At some point, you will no longer be able to work to earn an age. That is guaranteed. At some point, you will lose your income. So you would think that more people would put all their effort and stress on understanding, finding ways to prepare and have that retirement. But that's usually not something anybody thinks about until their 40s, sometimes 50s. And because of the way that stable income works, it doesn't work like, oh, I'm going to do this now and receive this income, right? There is this tail end to it. Time is a big factor when you're talking about true stable income and wealth. So people that start in their 20s, right, it's not the same as if you started in your 20s and your 40s. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not possible. Of course it's possible, but your strategy has to change and you need to do things differently. So it should pretty much be like the goal, or at the foremost goal of everyone, because it is a 100% certainty.
Yeah. And not to mention, I mean, you've probably met people like this too. But I've met so many people with jobs who make a really good income, whether they're lawyers or doctors or bankers, and a lot of them, like, they want to get out. Like, they don't like it. I mean, they're making a great income. It's like, if they could quit tomorrow, they would absolutely do that in a heartbeat. So just knowing that so many people want to get there, it's like, you might as well get to work on that. Like, do what you have to do so you don't have to work anymore.
Exactly. 100%. I don't think I've ever met a professional that said, and a lot of people think, oh, well, if I was making a lot of money, then all my problems would be solved. That is not how it works. I've never met a working professional that makes 6 figures plus that was like, yep, I never want to stop ever working. I don't want there ever to be an exit here doing this one thing that I'm doing, right? I don't believe in retirement from the standpoint of meaning I don't believe people are ever designed to retire. But the functionality of how we make our income, that's what we're talking about, right? So I'll never retire. I'll always be investing. But I can do that because it's not tied to my time, right? Now, any working professional doesn't believe that their income will last forever, and they don't believe that it's like, I'm done. It's over. I'm good. So when you look at people, whether you're making $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year, at the end, their concerns are all still the same. They really are. Now, I know someone that's making $30,000 a year hearing that saying, hold on, it is not the same. You don't know what you think. And I get that reaction because it's true. You aren't the same as far as your life that you live or your worries or your concerns. You're worried about making payments, right? You're worried about, literally having money in the bank account to do the bare necessities. What I mean by that, and I'm not at all trying to say that their concerns or struggles are the same, is just that everyone is working towards a goal, or everyone's thinking about a goal. Most people just don't understand what that goal is or how to get there. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have in the United States. Most educated people are financially illiterate. And lots of times I find that the more financially you are paid for your jobs, things like that, generally they are more financially illiterate because they haven't been looking for solutions or trying to understand it. And so there's no pressure for them to do it. So they're not really looking. Where a lot of people that are making less, lower middle class, or even more of the upper middle class, they're looking and they're trying to understand and they're seeking for knowledge to increase their position. And I think that there's a huge advantage doing that because you can do it right. I know lots of people that are in their 60s that are dentists, doctors, and they can't retire. I mean, they just barely paid off their medical bills.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Literally, I know someone 55 celebrating paying off their education, their medical bills, and I'm like, what? Like, it took you your whole life to get to that point, and you're a high paid person, individual. So, it's a universal concept.
I'm gonna have to go get some antidepressants after hearing that. That's really sad.
Well, hopefully, kicks us all into motion, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned in passing that, did you say you own a co-op and a property management software?
Yeah.
Did I hear you right?
That's right. So
which ones are those?
So we have Store Local.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Which is a self-storage co-op. The reason why Store Local was built, why we co-founded it was because of the need for independent operators and people that wanted to get into storage. We wanted the competitive advantage and landscape to be universal, meaning the big companies that come in, we didn't want to end up like the hotel industry where 5 brands own the whole entire market. We wanted independent owners and operators to compete at the same level. And so the co-op allows people to get there, buy services, and get everything at the level of the biggest companies. So it creates a situation where their competitive advantage is higher. And then the tech company is a property management system, and that is called Tenant Inc. The product is Hummingbird. That property management system is an open source system. Once again, we're trying to create an ecosystem in which independent operators can operate like REITs. And it was very clear that that was impossible without allowing without the tech playing into it, right? So we didn't have options, so we had to create options for the storage operators and owners, and that's where the tech company came from. So yeah, both of those things. We're very big on, like, when I look at real estate, there's 2 parts to real estate. Most people focus on the market, meaning the market makes you. That disconnect between their time and their money means they're fully relied upon the market. I focus on returns that are driven from our actions, not the market. And so we focus and pour a lot of money into things that would generate power for us to affect the returns of our assets. Whereas most people just pour their money simply into the assets. We poured it into the ability to operate the assets at a higher level. That made us more proficient. That made us understand opportunities better and take action on those opportunities. And we did that and created that so everybody can use it. It's one of our missions.
I guess to the listeners out there, AJ did not tell me to say this, but I've actually got a little reminder in my calendar to join Store Local. And I've been on demos with, I think, 7 different property management or self-storage property management software companies. Like, I've spent many, many, many hours now trying to find the best one for my new facility because I know it's a really big decision. It affects every single day. And Tenant Inc. is by far the best one I've seen so far, like by a long shot. And I think the problem with that whole the software realm in the storage business is that a lot of them are terrible. Like they're just really bad systems, or they're antiquated, and I think the reason that happens is because, I mean, I guess first of all, there's kind of a monopoly going on, but also a lot of them are sort of made to trap you. Like once you get in their system, it's very hard to leave. It's a huge hassle. So even if you know it's terrible and you know you're overpaying, switching and jumping ship is not an easy thing to do. And I mean, I don't know how big Tenant Inc. is in terms of market share right now, but I have to imagine, just based on what I saw, like if people would be going over there in droves because it's way better. I mean, the user interface is very clean. It's easy to use. It's easy to understand. The websites look great. So, I mean, yeah, I'm planning to sign up with you guys.
The thing that we look at in the industry is when you look at property management systems, like let's take self-storage, for example, they were built by tech guys. And the tech guys built it to own the revenues coming in from the subscriptions, right? And their data. So your data, the intellectual property that they had is part of their intrinsic value of the company. So it was never open and never shared, and it was tech people. So when the other operators like Extra Space and the big REITs, they built their systems for their companies and for storage. So they perform astronomically better. So Tenant was built by storage people. We built it, storage operators, owners. We all came together, we funded it, and then we hired tech people to build what we needed in storage. And that simple difference makes all the difference. Having it be open-ended, allow us to do true automation, right? And things that help storage operators make more money through increasing revenues, interfacing, user customer experience, as well as limiting their overall cost. And so when you look at it, this was built by operators for us. So the owners are the end users. And that is a very different setup than anything that exists.
And that does make a huge difference. I know the common feedback I hear from people using other software out there is, this thing is terrible. It needs this feature and this feature. And they'll tell the company, and they just get ignored because like the company doesn't care, and they don't have to do it because the person is not going to leave.
Yeah. The first time we said, hey, we need our data on another property management system, they said, all right, well, you pay us $5,000 and we'll get you your data. It's not usable. It's not anything else like that, but we needed it to switch. We literally had to pay them astronomical amounts of money to get our own data to do what was best for our company. And it's like, oh, this is a racket. And it's not made to benefit me. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's, yeah, people got, and that's the problem. We never wanted to start a tech company. Like, it's not like we're like, oh, how can we make a ton of money? Let's start. That never occurred. It was literally because we were forced into it. The co-op, we were trying all these large storage operators and small operators, single operators. We were trying to get the companies to work with us and to build us out something that we could utilize in the way that we wanted. They just all said no, nobody would ever do it. So then we're like, okay, well, if we need this, I guess we got to do it ourselves. But it was never designed to go, like, we never thought we wanted to own or start a tech company. That's not how it worked.
Yeah, well, it makes sense that you'd be involved with this, just given your size. Because I've had that same thought where it's like, I wonder if I could build my own software, but like I'm just not big enough, and it doesn't make sense for me to do that. But when somebody gets to your size, it's like, no, it kind of does make sense because I'm big enough and I have the connections, and other people could use it. And so I'm glad you jumped into that. It's a great idea.
Thanks. We're excited about it. Everything that we do is long term, So and I think that's one of the biggest things when you're looking at anybody in any industry, no matter what you go into, the more long term you are out, and the more long term that plan is, the solutions that you need change, and they change pretty dramatically. And so it's a lot of storage operators feel that way.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know you must have done this to some point. How do you form partnerships in the storage industry? Like, what role do you personally play in the facilities that you own or have a part ownership interest in?
Yeah. So when you're looking at partnerships in general, real estate, everything else like that, and in storage, there's a few things that you need to realize that the individual assets or industries may be sensitive to. So storage is very sensitive to the operator. You can have two storage facilities on the same street. They could be next door, and they will make different amounts of money. Exact same products. So it's not like the market set the price of a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom with this quality. And so that is the price of that thing in this market. That's not how storage works. It is like a business. We do things like dynamic pricing, revenue management, right? We maximize the square footage through offerings. I view storage, and I teach in storage, that the unit is a product. We are doing product market fit. So when we look at our storage facility, we have 10 different types of units. They're 10 totally different products that have 10 different customers. We also have our add-ons. We have insurance. We have other products that we use. One facility, we may have what would be considered 20 sources of revenue, right? And then we may have our managers at that point, and we are doing full-time marketing. Because of the short-term leases, people are turning over. That gives a much larger component to more like a retail business, getting people in the door, right, working it on that end. So with that, storage is very dependent on the quality of operators that will be operating the business. And so for us, we operate all our own assets. We don't do third-party management. So we do not third-party manage for anybody else. Our entire management company and system is predicated on our assets. My father and I built up over 100 million, 150 million in assets with just us, no investors, and our management company was predicated on that. Why? Because we had no third-party management options when we got started, so we were forced into it. Now, because of that, when we do partnerships are based upon risk, right, work, and money. In real estate, that's what you got. And so when we look at it, our partnerships are broken up into the fact that it's predicated on us operating and owning. Now, we joint venture with people. We have investors that come in our deal. So we generally have it set up as like a general partnership with limited partners, and we'll have co-GPs if we do like the joint venture partnership up with an individual, but we always are the ones that run the assets, meaning we have to be the operators, or else we're generally not going to do it, because our entire system of valuing it is predicated on our system. So when we do our feasibility studies, when we're underwriting assets, it is directly, the inputs that are coming into that are directly correlated with how we run the system. So we're not like guessing. Right? It's like I know exactly the expenses. I know exactly the return on ad spend. I know what we have to do. I know how long it's going to take, right? All of that. So when we underwrite something, we know what we're trying to do, and we have the tools and means to do it, to execute it. So partnerships, we do and utilize our technology, like we're talking about, to do it. We also have large technology pieces that does the revenue generating piece. So we come in and we're going to be the operator, right? And then other people come in and they'll own it with us. So we have equity splits, fee splits, right? And differences with that deal. And depending on it will depend on how that deal works. So if somebody brings us a deal that only they have and only can get, it's an off-market deal, right? They have a lot more say and power because they now hold the opportunity, right? And so we're happy to do deals, and we're happy to look and go with other people. Or they may bring in lots of money. There's just a whole variety of the ways that the deals can be done and shaped, but we don't ever do deals that we're not managing them. We want to make sure, and I hold the risk on all our deals. So I hold the debt, I hold everything. Our investors, they don't. And so, yeah, it's a variety of different structures that is dependent on the deal and the parties involved.
So you basically have your own management company that uses Tenant Inc products to manage everything. And this is over how many different facilities?
So we have 2.5 million square feet across 10 states. We're in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, Arizona, Oklahoma, Missouri, through a whole bunch of these different states that we own and operate. The amount of facilities, I think it's like 24, 25, something like that. Our average square foot per facility is 85,000 square feet. We've done everything from conversions. We've turned Bankrupt Super Kmarts into storage facilities. We're currently doing an office building into a storage facility that we bought right when the coronavirus hit and all the markets were shutting down and the financial markets. We picked up an office building that everybody was scared of and in distress. So we're very strategic. We do ground up huge developments in strategic opportunities. But yeah, we're agnostic so much to the location as it is the opportunity. So I don't ever want to trump, I want to be here. And that trumps the overall opportunity and returns that we would get.
Maybe we'll just pick on this Kmart deal. I know you've got a great YouTube video with Ryan Pineda, kind of walking through that thing, which I thought was fascinating. A similar thing happened to a Kmart near where I live, so it's kind of cool seeing what happened from your end. But so for something like that, like what portion do you personally own? It sounds like you manage it. So do you get like a management fee for that too?
So generally speaking, it's 30%.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Yes. So like how it works when you're dealing with partnerships in general, who's doing what work, right, gets the general fees associated with it. We take the ownership splits, right, are generally, we have it put in like this. It's 70-30. So the limited partners get 70%. We get 30%, but they're paid first. So you have an 8% preferred return, right? And then they get paid their 70, and we get paid 30 of the profit left over. We get a management fee, which the average management fee in the storage space is 10 to 15%. Now, a lot of management companies, they market that they're 5 or 6%, right? But they also take in the fees for everything else. They'll take sign-up fees, they take all the insurance premium, right? And so as a gross revenue component, they're 10 to 15%. I don't like that at all because obviously the value of the property is predicated on the net income. So if you have a third-party management that is taking 15 to 10% of the gross revenue, then your value, because it's associated, that's coming off the net profit, is astronomically hit because the value is leveraged, right? And we express in the form of a cap rate. So to give you an idea, if you have $1 million property and are making $100,000, that's a 10 cap, right? Now, if I have a 5 cap on the exact same property, right, that's $2 million, or it's $50,000 net income. So you're talking about the moment you start taking away from the net income is the moment you start cratering the value. So for us, we do a 6% flat. We take no other fees, nothing else like that on it, and it's a percentage of gross revenue. If gross revenue goes up, we make money. If not, then we obviously don't, and that should be a component of the management company. And we're very strong believers in that. So we directly correlate our returns with the performance of the asset. And that's a big deal no matter who you're working with.
That 6% flat fee, that's the like property management fee, and then
property management.
Gotcha. Cool. So it sounds like you and your dad grew. I don't know if it's relatively fast, but it seems fast. When you talk about 150 million in assets, even over like a decade, that's huge. How did you do that? Like starting from where you were in 2008 to where you are now, like what was the secret sauce to make that happen? It's probably a very convoluted question and answer, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
No, it's not. So we, yep. Let me walk you through. It was a little complex on how we stumbled into it, right? But the method is actually very simple. We started in 2000. I guess my dad bought that little one first in 2004. Then we bought our next one in 2005. And then we bought some small ones, rode through the recession, and then kept going. But because of our situation, we had to manage, right? Because there was no third-party management available. So that meant when we bought them, we needed the revenue to pay for us and the management, okay? But in order to grow our portfolio, we needed to do two things. We needed to get our money out and get it working again. So we couldn't have our money trapped in the assets, right? Or that would kill our ability to grow. And so if we sold it, though, we would lose the income to pay for the management. So our simple strategy was we are going to find underperforming assets, right? And then we are going to increase the revenue, refinance those assets, take all our money out plus profits, use that now tax-free to buy another one while that asset is still paying us. And then we would buy another one that was underperforming. We'd turn around, refinance, and do it over again. So that meant we could compound our money without ever losing the original source. And we could do it in a way that we didn't pay taxes on it. Now, we did that, and that obviously worked very well. So then we also started up businesses and selling businesses to try to get more capital to throw into the machine because it was working so well. So we started brokerage firms, and I started, even after I got out of the hospital, I started another one, which I built up and then just sold to try to get money into our system. Now, learned very quickly that it's a whole lot easier to just partner with other people than starting businesses and trying to sell them to get the money. So then we found out, well, you can do that just doing it with other people, using OPM, other people's money. So then we still got our compounding nature. We could still get our capital moving. We didn't lose that at all, but we didn't have to go start a business and sell it to amplify it. Instead of amplifying it, we just had other people come along with us. And from there, it obviously just exploded after we'd figured that out.
How did you find these deals? Or historically, what has been your best trick for using direct mail? Are you just calling people up? Is it just a networking thing? Is it all the above?
Until last year, I'd never bought a deal on market.
Okay.
So until last year was the first year we'd bought in deals on markets. We have a 3-tiered approach. We work with brokers. So prior to that, we had a relationship with 2 brokers. One of them was the main broker, and he brought us the deals off market. And he'd bring them to us. They were in these markets and everything. We were very clear on what we wanted. So we developed great relationships. We also developed relationships with storage facility owners. And it wasn't that we would go out and say, hey, sell me your storage facility. No, we actually went and developed relationships, which those paid off big time. And after 2008, capital was tight. You couldn't get money, and our money was tied up maybe in another deal, or we didn't have it available to us. We did a lot of owner financing. So then we brought in owners and had them seller finance our deals, which allowed us to bring very little capital, if any, and didn't need bank financing, and we could do that too. And that all came from our off-market nature. So developing relationships with owners and brokers tied to networking. So then we'd go out and we would network. We'd be very involved with the industry, and then other people would bring us deals. And the networking, the organic searches, meaning we would identify a market that we wanted. I would find all of the facilities in that market. I'd list what the best facilities in the market was, predicated on their location, their size, and whether they were being poorly operated or not. So the best location with the perfect size for us that we wanted that was being horribly run would be number one on that city in our hit list. From there, I would go around and basically the top 5 we would try to hit, but I would go talk to all of them in that city. And we would try to develop relationships, learn from them, and those resulted in acquisitions.
You said something interesting about how you develop relationships without actually asking to buy the facility.
Yes.
How did you do that? Because in my mind, that's the only way to start the conversation. Like what does this relationship look like if you're not just going right for the kill right away?
So these owners are getting hit every single day, 10 times over. Mailers, emails, calls, people stopping by asking, hey, would you entertain selling your storage facility? Which, because they just get it all the time, that is the straight opening for them to say no. It doesn't mean that they don't want to sell. It's not what they're saying. They're just saying, no, I don't want to talk to you about this because you and everybody else, and no, I don't know who you are, so why would I talk to you about this? So instead, we develop relationships with the owners because they're in this market. They're in the industry. So, hi, My name's AJ Osborne, right? I'm in storage. Saw you were part of the statewide SSA. I'd love to take you out to lunch and talk to you about your facility, see what's going on in the market, what are your concerns, everything else. So now we're talking shop and we're talking about the industry. I'm trying to learn from them. How'd you get your facility? What'd you do, right? And then we have a professional relationship. And after that, it may be like, well, you're a great person. You're a good, great guy in this market. You know it well. I'd love to enter in the market. So if you know anybody in this market that'd be willing to sell, just keep me in touch. I didn't ask him to sell me his facility, ever, not once. Now we're acquaintances. We know each other. And he knows I'm in buying mode. And a lot of times that results in well, I don't know anybody that's buying a facility, but if you're trying to move into this market, why don't you just buy mine? Well, all right, we could talk about that. Or if not, he may give me some names, then I get to go talk to them. And then we keep touch and keep in base. He knows I'm actively trying to buy. We know who he is. He knows who ours. And then 2-3 years later, calls us up, hey, we're having health problems or whatnot. I want to sell. Will you buy us? And that happens. So we bought people that 4 years later that we'd talked to every single year and knew.
Yeah, I mean, now that I hear you say that, like it kind of sounds like a no-brainer. Like, duh, just become friends with people and then they'll trust you and that kind of thing. But that's the kind of thing like most people won't do. Like they just don't want to put the time or the effort in. They're just like, nope, just give me what I want and I'm done.
It's easy to do mailers because you pay somebody else to do an action that takes no time. And I'm not saying that mailers are bad. I'm just saying you should expect what you paid for. And in times like the last 3 years, those things worked. They just didn't work very good. And you got a certain type of seller because they know they can make a lot of money. They know the markets are good, things like that. When you have a relationship with somebody, that changes everything. It changes your discussion. It changes why they're calling you because then they're like, well, I don't have to pay a broker. I already know you want to buy. I mean, we had one guy that we were talking to saying, hey, we're looking. He's like, wait, why don't you buy ours? And I'm like, how much would you sell it for? And he's like, wouldn't sell it for anything less than $4 million. We looked at him and said, all right, $4 million. First time we'd ever been to the site. He said, really? We stuck out our hand, shook the hand, and the deal was done. We sent over a purchase and sell agreement at $4 million, and we bought the asset. And it was him. He's the one that asked us to buy it. And so, it's a little difference, but it's meaningful when you're dealing in real estate.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Wow. These brokers who would bring you off-market deals, do you have any idea how did they find those off-market deals?
Yes. So the brokers that we worked with, and particularly the one, he was had spent years developing relationships. So he had a network of relationships with storage owners all over. He didn't work on volume, so it's not like he had a facility. It's funny, I'm buying a storage facility from him right now. It was never volume. It was always quality. He was an independent shop. All he did was storage, nothing else. And so he was an expert. And I developed a relationship with him through our viewpoints and how we viewed the industry. First time I found him, first time we ever had lunch, I sat down and talked to him for 3 hours. And we didn't talk about, I didn't say, so do you got any good deals? No, I don't say that. Say, what do you think about the market? Where's things going? By the end of it, we thought about a lot about the same things. We discussed how you come up with value. How's valuations done? And so as we developed that relationship and as I understood more of him, he understood more of me. He knew what I wanted. I knew how he underwrote and valued. So then as deals came along, it was AJ, I've got a deal that fits what you guys like and what you're doing. And I knew he views the way that I do. So the deals coming from him are going to be good quality deals. And so then it became, at the time, it became, hey, why don't you take a look at this deal? And then we would close on a deal. And he then knew, if you guys say you're going to close, you're going to close. So I'm not at risk and I have a really good buyer. Then when he talked to owners and the owners are like, I really don't want to go through this whole thing with, sellers all come into the property and I don't want to be jerked around and everything else like that. The broker would say, I got a guy. And if he likes your asset, he'll buy it. And if he says he's going to close, he's going to close. And he won't put you under a contract if he's not going to buy it. He won't jerk your time around. He's willing to pay fair market price. He's not going to come nickel and dime you. So if that's something you're willing to look at, let's just go to him. And I'd say, yeah, that'd be great. I can avoid all the mess. So we're providing value, and they're coming to us. And that's where I have this whole analogy that I call be the bear. And the idea is that you have this fisherman who's running around on the banks of the river, and he's trying to, I'm a fly fisherman, so he's trying to trick the fish into biting the lure. He's trying to get the fish. He's going over there, he's trying, right? And out of all the fish, he's not doing a very good job, and he's just trying to fool that one fish. Where a bear walks over on a waterfall, sits down, and sits there, and the fish just jumps straight into his mouth, and he eats and is happy. The idea is I want to be the bear. You sit in the path of opportunity and let the opportunity come to you. So focus more on creating the conditions of opportunity than you do trying to force it. And you'll be a lot more successful.
Now, how often do you build new facilities versus just buying existing ones? When I say build new, I guess I also mean like converting like a Kmart into a climate controlled. Like how often is it just buying what's there versus starting something new?
So our primary mode is acquisitions, but we try to keep generally, my rule of thumb is 20% of the assets at a given time that we are in a given year. If the assets we're buying, 20% of them we want to be build developments. And we are uber picky about developments. The reason why I like developments is acquisitions, you get what you get. And markets are the largest determining factor if you're going to be successful or not. So self-storage is wholly predicated on demand. So if I go find a market that's just an amazing market and I know the asset will be successful, it doesn't mean somebody's going to sell me an asset. So then I want to mix our acquisitions with assets in premier markets that are just amazing. And I want to diversify our portfolio and our overall end. But when I'm looking at a development, I'm looking at like 3 times cost to value. So if it cost me, $10 million, I want it to be worth almost $30 million when I'm done. So we have that, and obviously that means then what you're putting down is way more because you're not putting down $10 million. So when we look at that really limits us. It really does. But the reason why is if it's achievable, that means the market is awesome. And so I don't build to build, right? It's like I have what I call my margin of stupidity. Warren Buffett has his margin of safety. The margin of stupidity is that the market is so good and the asset's so good, I can be stupid and I can do stupid things and we're still going to be successful. And that's really important to me. And so when we look at developments, we want the markets and we want the assets to be home runs to where we don't question the success. We only question how much. And that keeps us out of trouble. And it creates diversified holdings into really good assets and asset types. Or excuse me, not diversified assets, markets.
Gotcha. Do you do all your own feasibility studies in-house or do you use a third party for that?
We do now. Yeah. We have over 80 employees in-house. And we do our underwriting. We do all our own feasibility studies. When I started, I paid for other people to do them. Now people pay us to do them. So they go to our site and they buy them and we do it under the same way that we do our own. So yeah, we do them all internally at this point. But no, we paid for years. We paid for somebody else to do them.
Yeah. I've always wondered when I see things like a Kmart, I mean, that's a lot of square footage that suddenly is new storage space on the market. I mean, does that mean there has to be a severe lack of storage in that market to justify that? Like, how long does that take to lease out when that suddenly hits the market?
I've never had a deal that took over 8 months to lease out, but that's not normal. You should never expect that. So 3 years is what you should expect and you should do. And you're right. The biggest problem people have is they build in areas where they think there's demand because things are occupied. High occupancy doesn't mean high demand. That is just not true. And they build in those markets, and they find out, unfortunately, the hard way, that there wasn't the demand we thought about. And if you're not in a market that is really good and growing, I mean, some people, they'll develop in markets where the demand's not there. And guess what? It's not going to be there. It may take years for the demand to ever get there, if at all. And that's the danger.
When you say things are occupied, do you mean storage is occupied or just buildings in general?
Storage. So just because you go to a market and the market's 100% occupied doesn't mean there's high demand. The reason being is storage is cheap in a lot of markets, right? So the demand equation is a three-dimensional one, but I'm just going to hit on two sides to understand. The relationship between the price or the cost of the square footage and the square footage being occupied is a very delicate one. So a lot of people have 100% occupancy, but their economic occupancy is like 80 or 70%, which means the rates aren't in reality what they think they are. And two, frankly, the demand may not be. So you're building at a price point that you think it is, and it's not there. So all of a sudden, the reason it's occupied is because they're charging so little. So somebody's like, I don't care. Sure, I'll use it. But you increase that 5 by 5 or that 10 by 10 from $60 to $90. Nobody wants to rent anymore, and they won't rent at that price point. So what you see as demand doesn't really reflect reality, because you have 100% occupied and you're like, oh yeah, and they charge 10 by 10s for $100. Little do you know, though, that owner, 50% of his occupancy only pays 50, and they won't pay $100. So the occupancy is way, way less. So developers get trapped in that. They are fooled by the occupancy fallacy.
Yeah. So how do you see through that then? How could you know if the people are actually paying $50 instead of $100? Can you know?
So there's a few ways. You can find that out through acquisitions, but in general, what we look at is we look at the past. So we look at the past and the past offerings. So what was occupancy and what were the rates at that time? And then what happened when occupancies or prices went up? So the sensitivity of the relationship between prices and occupancy, that tells a lot. So all of a sudden we lifted prices and occupancy went down. We lowered prices and gave discounts and occupancy went back up. There's not a lot of demand, even though they're at 100% occupancy. And we found this in places like the Midwest, where you're like, okay, everything's occupied. They don't have a lot of square footage. So we thought that there would be a lot of demand. And then what we found is, why have prices never changed, even though you have really good operators here? And then we go and ask managers, how is it? How is it getting occupancy up or rates up? And then we'd find really good operators in the highest prices in town, and they had the lowest occupancy. And so you're like, there's a direct correlation here to price and occupancy. And the more direct correlation between price and occupancy, the less the true demand really is.
So there are places where you can go and find this historical data, like what were prices 3 years ago and what was occupancy then? Is that stored somewhere? How do you know that?
Yeah, so there's a few ways you can do it. One of the biggest sites, you have Yardi and then a site called Radius Plus, and they'll usually look back and show you rates and pricings. Now, the more rural market you get into, the less you're going to be able to find out any of this. And hence one of the reasons why there's more danger in rural markets, right? So if you're going to develop in a fourth tier market, you're not going to have a lot of data. And not only are you not going to have a lot of data, the smaller the market is, the more sensitive it is to new square footage, and the less the future is to do it. So when you get into smaller markets, risk increases dramatically, very, very big. And that has a lot to do with the less amount you want. So if you have, we look at if future demand is the next thing we look at, and you say, okay, well, today's demand looks good, but there's 200,000 square feet of storage on the market. And I have people, they call us and they say, I'm doing this deal. It's awesome. They've never not been 100% full. And we look at it and we say, you're developing 100,000 square feet and there's 200,000 square feet in the market. How can you know that this market can take a 50% increase in supply? I don't know that. And I don't think you can, right? I just don't think that. So if the market is going to get hit with, 20+% new supply, I start to really argue that you don't truly know if there is demand for it. I mean, no ordinary business would assume that they could increase supply by 20+% and truly know if there's demand. It gets through. So you look for the tighter square footage, the higher the square footage, the less of the impact of square footage gives you an idea of demand. So if I'm looking at a market and I say, I'm going to put 5% supply on the market, and I can look at certain type units that we're going to put on there, they're all 100% full. They've been getting rate increases every single year, and they're not moving out, then it's obviously there's demand for it, because there's not even the 5% gap that you're putting on the market. That's not even inexistent. So there is demand for it. Make sense?
I think so. Yeah. How often have you seen like facilities that, basically made this mistake, built a new facility and they shouldn't have, and there's not enough demand, and as a result, they go out of business? Like, does that happen often? Or do they just find ways to just float it until it does fill up?
Yeah, a lot of people just find ways to float it. They lose money and do it. What has happened over the last 5 years, you've had the largest increase in demand for self-storage ever seen. So to give you an example, last 3 years, the average occupancy for self-storage in the United States was 96%. In the history of self-storage, the next highest point ever averaged was 86.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, in an environment like that, the market is bailing out bad players, and it's bailing out people that made stupid decisions. And that's why, when I look at it, the real estate market in general, the risk I see is that people didn't learn because they didn't have a situation in which they learned. Now, in 2008, that wasn't the case. In 2008, if you built a storage facility, you were going under. I bought a lot of people that were going under because there was no demand. We bought facilities that had 20% occupancy, and their 20% occupancy was 50% below market rates. So when markets are propped up by the federal government printing trillions of dollars, so it's totally not normal, then you don't have a lot of people failing. But it's important to remember that's not normal. And right now we are seeing people not struggling to fill up, and we are receiving calls because people are moving into permanent loans out of their construction loans, and they want to sell it off before they go into perm loans. They're not filling up, and they have to move into higher debt. So we're now going to see a lot of that.
So do you think, is self-storage safe or risky right now, just given where it's been and where it seems to be headed?
Yes. So what I mean by that is self-storage is coming off the all-time high of all-time highs. If you don't expect self-storage to do what it did in the last 3 years, then you expect a normal market cycle. And if you're in a market that didn't double its square footage, or didn't have a 30% increase of square footage in the last 3 years, and that square footage is not predicated on growth, then you're okay. And it's very safe. You've got good margins. You should be underwriting at sustainable levels, like occupancy at 85, 86, not at over 90%, which has never existed on average. And you should be looking at markets that have been tight all along and have had little impact on new square footage. So it really comes down to the basics. Now, if you are looking at storages in areas like Austin, Texas, you should be concerned. That was predicated on growth rates that were the highest in the nation, and they'd been building storage like there was nobody's business, because the developers were building storage and selling them at CO as if they were fully occupied. So the money they made on it was stupid. They were making millions, right? Well, now they can't do that. So all this storage is going to be hitting the market, and it's going to need to fill up. And in order to fill it up, they've got to drop rates. And then that means the whole market rates start to slow down and go down. So is storage dangerous right now? Only if you're in bad markets, only if you have bad expectations. Other than that, no, it's not. So we're opening up our fund in the next 2 weeks here. That's our distressed asset fund. And basically, we're going in to buy people that were either developing or refinancing, and they made bad assumptions. I call this event-based investing. And people that did acquisitions, what they did is they bought it, and they paid these astronomical high prices. They couldn't afford the debt, so it didn't matter because they were going to get an interest-only loan for 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, they were going to sell it at a 4 cap, and that's how they were going to make the returns. The returns were predicated on the sale. Well, interest rates rose. They can't give 4 caps anymore. So now they're going to refinance into 8% interest where they couldn't even pay it at first, right? And they don't have a sale to get them their returns to get out. So now they're just trying to get out. Did the asset fail? No. But did the person that bought the asset fail? Yes. Those are very different things. So I buy good assets that people failed on. And that is actually, I think, more common than the opposite. The assets don't fail. It's the people that are doing the assets that failed. And that's the perfect situation. There's a difference between intrinsic and extrinsic value when it comes to storage, when it comes to markets in general, but particularly real estate markets. Extrinsic value is the buying and selling of assets. So what's it worth? It's worth this price because the marketplace of buyers and sellers put that price on it. I call that extrinsic. Intrinsic has to do with the cash flow that generates. So the intrinsic value of this is $200,000 of net profit. Then what I pay for it is my value predicated on the yield that I get off that asset, right? I only focus on intrinsic value. So if you only focus on intrinsic value, you don't expect markets to bail you out and you're okay.
Kind of a hypothetical question. If you had to hit the reset button right now and you started over from either nothing or wherever you were back in 2008, knowing what you know now, if you had to start over, what would you do? Like how much money would you need?
Take money sooner. I was operating on our income. So my father and I, we took no income from our real estate for a decade. We didn't pay ourselves. We only pumped money into our real estate. That limited how much we could buy, the opportunities that we had. If I would have obviously taken other people's money to supplement our capital, we could have bought way more and grown faster and done it just as safe.
So like you think getting other people's money involved a lot earlier is probably what you'd do? Like getting other partners and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that would have allowed us to do more, be more stable. It would have protected us and our investors more. I was just scared of it, so I didn't do it. Now you always say that, but hindsight's always 20/20. Like I tell people when they're like, "Okay, yeah, but you're risking my money," and I'm like, "Please, I'm risking your $200,000. Like I have 80 plus million that I hold the note for. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I never had your $200,000. I'm not risking your money. You're riding on the back of my expertise, and that's true." And so it makes it so I can tell people and look at them, no, you don't. I'm not risking your money. You're not like it. I risked all my own money. And I did that forever before I ever took anybody else's money. So although I say that I wouldn't, I think it plays really well to my story, right? And it gives me a lot of credibility that I didn't. So hindsight's always 20/20, but.
Well, that's interesting because if somebody, like if we go back to 2004 or 8 or whenever it was that you get started, like you hadn't done a deal yet, you had no track record, you didn't have this 80 million, like you really had nothing. But if you could start over with your same brain, so like a person might not be throwing their money at you because they don't see your track record. So for somebody who is getting started, like do they take down their first one on their own or do they partner right out of the gate with somebody?
Either way is fine. The only deal that you have to remember, if you're getting started and you don't have anything, there's a skewed platform on the relationship between you and your investor. So right now I get 70-30 split and I get paid to do the work. People have to pay me for what we've done and built, right? If I'm starting out and I have nothing, I don't get those terms. I don't get that. The person that's putting in their money is taking way more risk than I am, right? And so you have to be sensitive of that relationship. That means you're going to have to give up a lot. You're going to have to work for free. You're going to have to do things that maybe you don't want to do. And to be frank, you may not make a lot of money, but it's going to add your experience. And two, people may have that may be their only option. Now, I don't believe that. I think you should start out by yourself and go get someone that will seller finance it. And then you can seller finance it, you do it, you get your own experience, and then you immediately can do your next one now with experience, with assets under your belt, with other people. Now, other people may not know how to do that. I think you can learn, but they may not want to. That's fine. I have a guy that's part of my inner circle who is got a lot of connections with a lot of capital. That is actually that's his superpower, right? So it makes no sense for him to do a deal not using other people's money, right? But at the time when we got started, I didn't even know how to ask people for money. I'd never heard of that. I'd never been around people. I was from Boise, Idaho, and Boise, Idaho wasn't a thing, right? Like, we didn't have rich people where I lived. We came from families of farmers. I didn't know, who would you ask? I didn't know you could take money like that from people. So I think that, and there was no books on self-storage. There was no podcast. There was no social media. So from that, we had to figure it out the way we had to do. And I think that's the key. It's not about, I don't have that opportunity, or I do. It's about figuring it out. And if you have the opportunity, do. If you don't, find somebody or seller finance. If you have your own money, use your own money. And 3, do a combination of all 3. And that's how I do it. I use all 3.
Yeah. One of my questions here was, it's kind of a generic question, but just how much money does it take to get into self-storage if you're starting from nothing? Does it take anything if you could do seller financing, or should you have like a certain nest egg put aside?
Nope, it doesn't take anything. But this is one of the biggest fallacies that there is. Like, I have people that are like, I need to start in single family homes. And I go, member of my inner circle, we just got them a $250,000 storage facility, which we wholesale. So we called directly the owner, negotiated with him, right? It's an owner done deal directly to it, $250,000, and it has 50 doors. And I asked them, in your market, what does a duplex cost, right? And this was 6 months ago. It wasn't $250,000. It was $400,000, right? So all of a sudden I'm like, is it really harder? Is it really more expensive? And 2, by the way, is the owner of the duplex going to do things like seller financing? No, they're not. So all of a sudden I showed him how you could basically take half of what it would be to buy a duplex, and you can get into storage, and instead of having 2 doors, you have 50. Which one's safer, right? Which one has more upside? And so I think that's just an argument that you can quickly tell people that you don't need your own money, right? And even if you're using your own money, you don't need a ton of it. Like, I know storage facilities that will sell for $80,000. Now, you may not be able to be in LA, right? I wasn't. When we got started, I went to places like Bonners Ferry, Idaho. For any of you that don't know where Bonners Ferry, Idaho is, there's more grizzly bears than there are humans there. And I think that's actually true. So it's a one-street kind of town. I don't even know if there's a stop sign or anything. But that's where we could go. So we bought a dirt gravel facility on the side of this highway up in the mountains, right? Going through northern Idaho. And we went where we could go. The next place we went to Pendleton, Oregon. Why? They would seller finance. So that's where we went, right? Too many people want the market to give them what they want. The market doesn't care about you. Why should it? And so you got to stop thinking like that. You need to go with what you have and go to the place where the market will deliver opportunities. If not, you need to change your circumstances and stop making excuses and figure it out that way.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Now, you do a lot of stuff, obviously, as we've talked about. You've got software, you've got the co-op, you've got the self-storage income. Is that like a conference you run every year? Is that what that is?
Yeah, so self-storage income is basically our educational platform. Once again, it was a promise I made in the hospital, so we give away all our information for free. So YouTube, podcasts, everything. We get on every single week. We tell numbers. I do it on like on Instagram. We show back end. We show what things are doing. We show case studies. We walk through how do you get financing when we're interviewing all these people. And so it's our educational platform. It's where I have the best-selling book in the industry, right? Growing Wealth in Self-Storage by AJ Osborne. I put that out. And then I have like my inner circle, which is just people come and they join and they get my time. And then I jump on to each of them. Like if it has to do with my time, you got to pay me. Like that's kind of how the bottom line is. But that's just for people that wanted more and want to do things like that. But all my information's for free. You don't need to. You can go listen to everything, do everything. It's always been a big, big thing for me is that if the industry does better, I do better. And if the participants in the industry are making money, that means I'm making money. If I'm in a city and a storage facility owner is doing poorly and not making money, that doesn't mean I'm doing great. That's not how it works. So I want the industry to be better. I want people to be better so that my assets, because I don't make income from education. I only make income from doing, right? That's where all my income is. And so I need those assets to work and I need it to be good. That telling everybody though what we do, how we do it, that generates opportunities in the form of investors and also deal flow. So people say, AJ, we understand you, we know what you do, here's a great deal that we have. So the idea with self-storage income is we want to be not just the largest educational platform in self-storage in the world, we want to be the highest quality platform of self-storage. So we do events, which our first event that we did cost me $150,000 out of my own personal pocket after everything was paid to do. We don't go cheap. This isn't something that's like in a hotel. There's fireworks shows at a resort. This is high end. We had the largest owner of self-storage, privately owned self-storage in the world speak. We had this one. We had Ken McElroy, who owns $2 billion in real estate, owner of the Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah, awesome, right? He speaks at our events, things like that. So we try to do everything quality, high end. We're not trying to do it to generate money from it. It's to generate opportunity, which makes us money. The money comes from doing, and that's our whole goal and our whole purpose, and that's what we do on that end. We want to be the leading brand in quality.
If I can work it out, I'm hoping to make it to the one next year because I saw the video recap, and yeah, it looked like an awesome time. And kind of a smaller group, right? I mean, you could actually get to know everybody there for the most part.
Oh, yeah. You're meeting with all the members. We don't do anything like we could do 1,000 members, right? That's not what we do. In fact, I literally have a meeting today to plan next year's event, but 300, if we even go to 300, you're done. So nobody else can come in after that point. Why? Because we want it to be intimate, meaning the speakers and we want to be people are literally, we're just hanging out together. Ken McElroy's out there hanging out with people till 3:30 in the morning. He's out on boats with people. I'm out on boats. Like that's what we want to be known for is quality. You can go to ISS and SSA that has thousands of people, right? That is not what we're trying to do. They hold their place. They do a great job for it. But we are not that. And we are not some ginormous convention center that you pay a ton of money to go to. And the speakers that are there, who knows if they're good or not. And everybody's trying to sell you something. We don't do that.
In Cedar Creek Capital, so if I understand it right, like could I go and invest money with you there? Is that how that works? Or
Yep, 100%. We take accredited investors and they come in and we view it as, right along. They're actual owners. They get K1s. They get all the depreciation. They're owners of the storage facility with us, and they come along and invest alongside us. And that's my mission. Cedar Creek Capital is my mission, and we hold long term, so we don't kick investors out. Why? Why don't we kick investors out? Because the goal is that other people have long-term wealth and income. It's my why. I believe you can change the world by changing the financial well-being of individuals. Why? Because financial independence is the only true form of freedom that we have, meaning you can make any decisions that you want. And it's not like a political thing where it's like, oh yeah, you do something for me, I'm going to do, right? No, we want to allow other people to be independent, to change their own lives through their own financial system. And when you do that through economic participation, The whole divide that we have in the United States is predicated on one thing: people that own assets and people that don't. So our goal is to get as many people owning parts of the economy as we can for the long term, not some quick fix, not a stock that they own that may go up, it may go down, but it doesn't produce any income and all the benefits go to everybody in between. No, like you actually own the assets, and we're big believers in it.
Are you allowed to talk about like what kind of returns a person could expect, or can you not go there?
Yes, I can. Our filings, and how we're a 506C, so I can talk about things. I can't talk or promise, obviously, anything, and I don't have anything as of right now that we are funding. So I don't have anything right now. That will come out in a couple weeks, right, where we do our fund. Generally speaking, though, I can't tell any deal specifics, which I don't need to, and I don't have, but I can say our mode of operations. It's very, very simple. Our goal is unlike any other fund that's on the market. The goal is this: they come in, they invest alongside us. We improve the asset. We pay everybody all their money back, plus a 20% return in our 3 to 5 year period. And then they own the asset free and clear and have infinite returns forever. And then we refinance it, right? You keep getting those returns and those profits. The goal is, just like how I build up my company. You asked me, AJ, how did you guys do that so fast? How did you do so much? It's because we got our money out, but we still own the asset, and then we could redeploy that money back in and keep it growing. My goal is that somebody comes in and invests with us, and in 20 years, they're like, AJ, I've been investing with you for 20 years, and now I own 50 storage facilities with you, and it's all off the same money that I started out with you. So I didn't even put more money into it. In fact, I took the profits out and pocketed them, but my money just kept going back into more and more deals. And then they own this huge portfolio of deals alongside us. So our returns, what we shoot for, are targeted. Everything else is all the principal paid back plus a 20% return in 3 to 4 years is generally what we target, and then infinite returns from that point on. And they're getting it in a way that is not tax free, but the most tax advantage that you can. Because if you sell the deal, what happens is you have huge splits with the promote that you have to do. You have to recoup depreciation, pay capital gains tax. So all of a sudden your true return is much smaller than you ever thought it was. And then you have to take that money and go reinvest it to try to get those returns. The way that we do it allows you to get that money back, but not have to pay recoup on depreciation or capital gains returns. You don't have to pay taxes on it because it's in the form of the refinance. So we believe that it hyperdrives people. It gets them to a point where they own assets and have zero risk in them whatsoever. And when they start out, they don't have any risk. I take all the risk of the debt, everything else like that. But then they don't even have the risk of capital, but they still own. Remember, our goal is economic participation. It's not just purely returns. And we think that beats out 24/7, all the time, every day. One of the reasons why we can do this is our company is built on mine and my father's assets. So our management company, everything else like that, that's paid for by the assets that we already own. So we don't have to sell assets to generate big returns to pay bills. We don't need to do that.
Man, that's amazing. I mean, that's making me wonder, like, I almost wish I had known about this before I decided to build my own facility, because this would have been way easier. Wait, is there like a minimum investment required to play ball with you guys?
Yeah, so we do, generally speaking, we'll do like $50,000 for first-time investors, but we're trying to keep it at $100,000. Now, our end goal is that we create economic participation for everybody, even people that don't have $50,000 and $100,000. But how the government works right now is the government set up laws that basically say, unless you're a rich person, you're stupid. And I am so absolutely against this, but that's literally what the law says. You don't know enough to invest. And politicians put this in the framework of protecting investors. They're not protecting investors. They're protecting Wall Street. Why? Because if you could invest your money directly into a cash flowing asset that has equity and participation and tax benefits, right, with people that have track records to the tune of hundreds of millions, you're doing that. You're not putting your money in your 401k. You're not putting your money in with some random stocks on Wall Street that everybody gets their cut from. So I believe it's a totally rigged system that the government set up to shelter economic participation. The vast majority of funds and assets that the wealthy play in, nobody hears or knows about it because it's against the law for them to talk about it. That's crazy to think about. And when people are like, yeah, the rich get richer and, you know, they have all their secret deals and their secret things they're doing, it's secret because they don't want to go to jail. That's why it's secret. This is government instituted. And I personally have a big problem with that because it's like, how are you supposed to get ahead if you can't participate in the economy? And the government is stopping people from doing it. So we want to get to a point where we actually do more of a, not a 506c, but a one where you can take non-accredited investors or non-rich people. That is a huge thing, though. Like, it's going to take us a while to get there because of the legality of it. It's a really big deal. But that's our end goal, is that we open it up and allow access to everyone. But the government makes it really, really hard to do that.
You know, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way until I heard you phrase it like that. But that's kind of the truth, though. I mean, it really limits a lot of people from being able to play a ball. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Oh, and I know a lot of people that are unaccredited investors and are much smarter than accredited investors. So this idea that you are protecting them because they don't know is total BS. The statement itself is, to me, ridiculous, that somehow you pass an income, you become a millionaire, or you pass an income of $300,000 a year, and suddenly you're smarter than when you were making $150,000 a year. What a joke, right? I mean, so, you know, it is total BS. And right now they're trying to change the laws. So they're trying to change the laws to make accredited investor status up to $10 million.
Really? Whoa, this is going to make it even worse.
Tell me this. Who has $10 million of investable assets? That doesn't count your house.
Man.
You're going to eliminate investments to the super rich, not even the rich. And it's shocking. And they're pushing, that's a big goal of theirs, and they're trying to push it through right now. And they're trying to limit it. And, you know, we just play with the rules we can get, but we don't allow things just to happen to us. We're going to fight against it and try to do what we can for our investors.
And you can't even include my $10 million house in that. That's crazy. Oh,
exactly. You can't. Sorry, man.
Yeah. Well, AJ, you've been very generous with your time. I appreciate you sharing. There's a ton of stuff we covered here. It's been awesome. So if people want to find out more about you, I mean, it sounds like we've talked about a lot of this stuff. There's, there's SSI, there's cedarcreekwealth.com. You've got an awesome YouTube channel. I'll be linking to all this stuff in the show notes. You can find that at REtipster.com/146. Is there anything else people should do, or any place they should go, or anything else you want to share?
If you go on to, like my Instagram or Self-Storage Income, email us, we email you back. I try to get back to DMs on Instagram, so I try to directly work with people. So just check it out and learn more about us and what we're doing. We're fairly easy to find. Google, all the links will be there, but you can Google AJ Osborne Self-Storage and you're going to get inundated.
Yeah, sounds good. I will link up to all that stuff in the show notes again. And thanks again, AJ. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate the talk.
You bet.